Hey you guys, we are back with another video, and it is right now 6 a.m. As you can see, the sun is just blazing behind me. I'll put the angle here so you guys can't see it, or maybe it's better this way, who knows. But anyway, if you've been basically in tune with the energies that have been hitting the planet recently, you may have noticed that they've been kind of intense. At the time of this video, if you're watching it, it's August the 3rd or the 4th, basically that week. And for the past 3 days, my sleep schedule has been changed. What I mean by changed, basically I've been waking up to align myself with the sun. So normally I'd wake up around maybe in the afternoon, closer to 11 a.m., maybe 10 a.m. But lately my schedule has been kind of thrown off. Even though I'm going to bed at like 12 midnight, I'm waking up in the early hours of the morning and I don't feel tired, right? Usually if you only get like 5 or 6 or 7 hours, you don't get 8 hours, right? You feel tired, but for me it's not tiring. I'm aligning myself with the sun. So what I realize is when I wake up, it's basically because the sun is about to wake up as well. So right now, this morning I woke up at 5:30 a.m. and when I looked outside, it was already starting to become bright. The day before that, I woke up at around 9 a.m. and then the day before that, it was closer to 7. And in all of those cases, the sun was already well passed out. And so the reason why I want to make this video is because it's like, what is the universe trying to tell you in this moment, right? Why are you suddenly waking up and aligning yourself with the sun? Well, it's kind of the universe's way of telling you that you're finally aligning with the right path. As you know, the sun represents energy, it represents life. It gives life to everything here on planet Earth. You're aligning yourself with that source of creation. You kind of say that your manifestations are well on their way. They're already starting to show up, and you feel this need to kind of get up early and prepare yourself for the amazing, great, and wonderful things that you have to come. It's like if you have a really big day, right? It's an important day. Let's say that, I don't know, you're gonna be you're about to be, let's say, crowned king, right? And it's your coronation, the day of your coronation. Do you really think you're gonna get up an hour before the festivities start? Or are you gonna get up way earlier in the morning to prepare yourself for the day that's to come? If you wake up with just, an hour to spare, then you're gonna kind of be running around, rushing throughout your day in order to meet the time of the coronation, right? Whenever the deadline is. And so it's not going to be a very enjoyable experience. But if you get up way before that, if you get up really early, let's say 6 hours before the coronation is going to start, then you've got basically 6 hours to yourself. A time of quietness, a time of inner stillness and contemplation. It's kind of like enjoying the last moments of who you once were before you become someone new. Before you graduate, you could say, from the place which you were at in life, wherever that may be, to the next level. I know I woke up this morning and the most prominent message came through me, which was, hello, Mr. Squirrel. I don't know if you can see the squirrel. I'll give you a video right there. Anyway, but yeah, even the squirrels wake up at 6 a.m. The most prominent message, I was getting carried away. It's like, imagine that you're playing a chess game, right? And there's various pieces, and so there's the pawn, which is considered the lowest. And then there's the other units, right? There's like the horse, the castle, the bishop, and the king, the queen. So if you're a pawn, you're basically the lowest rank in the game, in the hierarchy, in the system. And so you're going to be in the middle of most of the conflict and the stress and the fighting. You're going to be fighting a lot. And that may be what many of you are going through in life. You feel like you're fighting something. You feel like there's a lot of suffering in your life. And the message for me this morning was that when you basically graduate to the next level, so basically you suffer in life because that is what is needed to feel the criteria necessary for you to then graduate on a soul level. So suffering is kind of like the curriculum. And the more you suffer, the faster you grow, the faster you graduate to the next level. And each level is better than the next one, or the one previous. Like it's more enjoyable, there's more joy and happiness. There's more freedom. Again, going back to the chess example, pawns can only move in one direction, right? They can only go forward. And they're limited by what they can do. They can only eat one diagonal square in front of them. But once that pawn graduates, it reaches the finish line of the end of the board, it graduates, and then it becomes another piece. It becomes a horse, and now it has the freedom to move 2 squares forward. It could become a rook. It can jump the entire board if it wants to. It's no longer limited by only moving one step at a time. It can also even become a queen, right? Freedom in all directions, the most important piece in the entire game. Beside the king. So if the universe is getting you to wake up with the sun, it's kind of telling you, it's almost time for you to graduate. And it's coming whether or not you like it, right? It happens automatically. You don't really have to push anything. You just have to align yourself with it. And so sometimes that's why we wake up really early in the morning. Because we're aligning ourselves with the gift that is coming. Sorry, off topic from my chess example. So once you graduate, right? A pawn that graduates into, let's say, a rook. It's no longer just a pawn. It's no longer just a soldier. It now has different duties. It no longer has to endure the suffering of being a pawn. It must now endure the suffering of being a horse or something like that. But compared to being a pawn, which can only move one step at a time, being a horse is much better. Because now you're moving much faster. And you don't have to deal with so much of the fighting and the chaos that happens on the board of life. Because a pawn isn't allowed to retreat, right? It must always go forward, even if the opposition is extremely fierce. Whereas the horse has the freedom to kind of take fights or leave them. It can kind of say, hey, I've already done my duties as a pawn, right? I've already suffered and been eaten, hundreds and thousands of times in the past. Well, now I'm a horse. I don't really need to fight someone or have my soul eaten again. I can just run away from a fight if I think that it's gonna not result in my favor. I can always choose not to take on the suffering. I can choose another choice. I have options available to me. It's no longer just I must endure suffering. It's, well, you could endure suffering, or you could, take an alternate route that isn't so highly contested and stressful. And if you see my previous videos, you've seen me kind of talking about that when it comes to the winds of change in your life. And the universe is trying to push you towards those changes that will get you to have less suffering in your life. It's just a matter of aligning yourself with them. The same way you align yourself to wake up with the rhythm of the sun. That easy, really. That's why a lot of teachers say that suffering is optional. I didn't get this at the point. At the point that I heard it, I didn't understand it. But basically, the way you can understand it is that suffering is optional once you graduate. Once you graduate, you don't have to put yourself through the boot camp anymore. You don't have to struggle anymore because you've already done it. You've already proven to yourself that you've done it. You've already claimed the accolades to allow yourself to graduate to the next level. But the option for you to go back down is always there, right? It's just that now you have freedom of choice whether or not you want to go back down to that lower level, or if you want to choose a higher level. If you want to start suffering at the rank that you've been promoted to, because basically it's all suffering. Well, yeah. I think Buddha once said this: life is suffering, everything is suffering. What is life about? It's about suffering. Because suffering is what gets you to hit that next stage in your evolution as a soul. So you could sort of say at the lowest level is extreme suffering. And then as you move up, as you suffer more, the suffering becomes less intense and less harsh. And so at some point in time, you go from suffering to neutrality. Everything is just neutral. And at this point, there's no suffering, but at the same time, you haven't yet reached the level of, let's say, excitement or joy or happiness or contentment yet. You're still at neutrality. And I think that's what a lot of people go through when they have a spiritual awakening. The sudden transition from suffering, which was the lower rank, to all of a sudden you get promoted, because, you know, promotions happen instantly in life as well, right? You go from being a worker to the manager, bang, overnight. It's a few years in the making, but the transition is instant. And so many people, when they have that profound spiritual awakening, they lose something that's vitally important to them. And what is that vitally important thing? It's suffering. You always see people who are like, oh, they are in a steady job, but they hate it, but it pays the bills. So there's a lot of suffering in that job. And all of a sudden, overnight, bada bing, bada boom, they lose that job. And now they don't know what to do, right? Because they've gone from a state of working at a crappy job, lots of suffering, to all of a sudden you have no job, now it's neutral. You're no longer suffering. And for many people, that transition is very hard for them to accept because it's so sudden. We're not used to dealing with sudden changes and adapting to them. But then you'll realize that the next job they then take is a lot better. It's a lot less painful. It's a lot less stressful, right? Why? Because they promoted. They've already done the suffering. They've already done their time. And so now they can move on to the next step and have more enjoyment in their life. So know if things are getting left behind in the dust, you feel like your life's kind of slowly shifting to something better, know that your life is slowly shifting to something better. And that it's all intended as part of your soul's evolution for growth. You're leaving the old to make way for the new, and the new is going to be a lot more positive and happy for you. You're going to see a lot more enjoyment and happiness and stress-free living. And you'll be able to go with the flow more. Waking up when the sun rises. Going to bed when the sun is down. You don't have to wake up to an alarm clock, right? An alarm clock is basically the textbook example of suffering, because you can't even rest, you can't even sleep. You gotta get up. You force yourself to get up when you don't want to. But when you no longer choose suffering and you allow yourself to just go with the flow, then all of a sudden the world around you is radiant and beautiful, just like that sun behind me. And remember at the beginning of this video, the light was kind of very like harsh and radiant and kind of in your face? Well now, because the sun's risen a little bit, it's not as harsh. And you can even look at it directly and then start to enjoy it. So that's just kind of a preview of how over time you start to get accustomed to the radiant light that's in your life. At first it may be blindingly bright and uncomfortable, but as time goes on you'll settle down and you'll realize that, hey, I actually enjoy it a lot. So I think that's it for the end of this video. Hope you're all having a wonderful week wherever you may be. August is supposed to be a month of very big and profound changes, and so I am looking forward to it. At the time of this video, it should not yet be the date that I'm going to mention, so I'm just going to say it here. I have no idea what will actually happen, okay? But I received a channeling message from our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters in the sky. And this was back in about July. I was in an altered state. And they told me a very important date that will be coming up. And at first I didn't want to believe it, but because I don't want to believe dates, I don't want to put any kind of emphasis on the future. It's better to just live in the present. But August the 19th, they said it's going to be a very big day. That day may be just personally for me, but they did say to keep an eye out on that date, because something is going to happen on that date. Maybe, probably. I don't know what it is. So I'm going to wait until that experience comes, and I'll keep you guys updated on whatever happens on that day. And it's supposed to be something that's profoundly very exciting and joyful. So I'm looking forward to that date. Hope you guys are also having blessings well on the way to you. Yeah. And I'm gonna cut this video off, head back home, take a nice shower, maybe a nap. And I'll see you guys again very soon, whenever we have the chance to make another video. Take care. Love you all. Blessings to you, and peace out.